ladies' night. It's May. I know that.
May?
It is May.
May 6th.
Yeah, because yesterday was Cinco de Mayo. Well, okay.
That's right.
So now
I guess it's May
Okay.
7th for them.
we're
isn't it?
recording on the 6th.
It's like a TV show.
Right.
Like a warped reality.
Right.
It's okay.
So I've heard from a couple of you guys who are watching, so thanks for watching. Someone told me just today that they're watching us, so thanks for watching. I hope you're getting something out of it. Obviously, you wouldn't keep watching if you weren't. So the last couple of weeks we talked about our relationships with our spouse, and so now we're going to turn our focus to friendships and the friendships that we have and what makes what we look for in friends and what we like. We're going to start with a Proverbs verse. It's Proverbs 18, verse 24. It says, "A man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother." So what does that mean to us, and how do we look for friends? Do we look for those friends that stick closer than a brother? That's a big trait. Wow, closer than a brother.
Well, and like looking at the verse, like I read it last week in preparing for this week, and like just thinking to yourself, like, how many friends do you have? Like, how close are you with your friends? We were just kind of talking about it before we started recording, how like with Cassie's personality, she can jump into any group and she could just say, yep, you guys are my friends now. Whereas some of us who are maybe more introverted have a little bit of trouble saying like, this is a true friend. And so you kind of have to think about like, how much time do you put into your friendships? How much do you trust your friends? And so a lot of times we have to also be a little bit careful of who we say is like a true friend, because if we're saying like, all these people in my life are my friends, but you're like telling them everything that you want to about your life, or you are trying to hang out with all of them but you don't have enough time to, you might run into some problems where how much can you tell those people without getting into trouble later on, where you find out that somebody who you thought was your friend was telling other people these things that you didn't want shared with other people. And so, looking at that second part of the verse of, there is a friend that is closer than a brother, putting your trust into specific people so that you're not putting yourself in those problematic situations is kind of what I was looking at with that verse, and thinking about friendship overall going into this week. So
I think some of it too is broad and deep. Like there's a difference.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I have some friends who I have had since I have one friend specifically, Sabrina. We've been friends since we were 5.
Yeah.
That's a long time. This is my longest commitment in my life. Sabrina.
Sorry, Nate.
And
you were last week.
Sorry, Nate. We moved on to Sabrina. And no one in my family is shocked because I just brought up Sabrina, because this is my life. And I've had other friends too, of course, but you have just certain, and then there's also friends that only come in your lives for short periods of time. There's a lot.
Yeah. So as we delve into what friendship is, maybe, I know for myself, I am a pretty strong introvert. I'm sure that's not going to shock anyone. So if you know what introvert, I guess maybe you don't know.
Right.
Introverts tend to be more quiet, more inter-thinking, I guess, inter-processing, not ones to be really out there. They tend to stand back and observe a lot and take things in before they respond to a situation. Tend to be more quiet. They're okay, like we can function in big groups, but we much prefer one-on-one. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything else. And it's okay, like as an introvert, you can be an introvert and like you are outgoing and bubbly. Right.
But like I have a certain friend who's also really good friends with my husband. We were all friends in college. Leanne, I know that she's like, she needs that downtime, like she needs that away time to re-energize, because she doesn't get energy from people. She gets it from that time for herself.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's a huge factor, which in this time of isolation and quarantine, all the extroverts I'm sure are like pulling there. So look at Cassie. Cassie is an extrovert. If you
I am
hadn't
such
guessed
an
that
extrovert.
yet. So she gets her energy probably from people. I imagine
do.
being in groups, those relationships with large, are big. Whereas, for me, like, I need that alone time to recharge.
And for me, I think it's kind of weird because I used to always I was an extrovert. Like I would talking about my sister, my twin sister and me, she was introverted and I was more extroverted. And she would always say like, "Oh, Heather, you just have so much more friends than I do, and everyone likes you better." And I'd be like, "Okay, I think they like you just as much, but it's the personality." And so like we always would talk about how extroverted I was and how introverted she was. But then it's funny, like now that I've gotten out of college, I have a family at home. I almost feel like I can be extroverted at times, but I've also I've gotten to the point where I need that downtime to recharge. And so then I'm questioning am I more introverted now? So I think it's not to say you'll always be extroverted or you'll always be introverted, but you might go through those shifts and stages. So I don't know. I can be extroverted. I definitely am extroverted, especially going into school and stuff teaching. It's hard. It'd be weird for me to say I'm introverted because all my kids would say you're extroverted. And it's funny that you were like, I should probably explain what introverted means, because I made some comment earlier this year about introverted and extroverted, and my kids were all like, what does that mean? And I was like, you're 8th graders. How do you, I guess no one you don't really think about teaching that. But so I would probably say I'm extroverted, but I do tend to have that times where I'm like, I need the downtime and I don't want to talk to people. And so
I think everybody does. I'm
Right.
super extroverted. I mean, I'm one of the biggest extroverts I know. But there is that time where you get to the end. Kelsey was talking about that, and Kelsey's an extrovert too.
Yes.
We could probably rival each other. And we were saying sometimes they'll come Friday, you're like, I have dealt with so many people.
right.
Yeah.
And it is time or I'll say to Nate, I just want someone to serve me, so we need to go to a restaurant. Because I have served all week.
Right.
And some kids are harder to serve than others.
Right.
But,
So
yeah.
So part of that kind of plays, kind of like what you said with you and your sister, it might appear that the extroverts have a lot more
Right,
friends than maybe what us strong introverts have. But one thing we were talking about is kind of how we define friends too. I know for me, I would say I have 2 really, really close friends, and one of those being my husband. Who just
Love you, buddy.
the other one being a wonderful lady, Mary. I don't think she probably watches this, but just because they don't do a lot of internet. But someone I met at our last church, and just someone who's, kind of thing. So that leads me to my trait is, one of the things I really need to feel like you are my close friend that sticks closer than a brother, that real deep, is just that trust factor. The ability to be vulnerable with you is huge for me, because part of that, I think I've always kind of been that way. I would say when I was in school growing up, friendships came more naturally.
Oh,
And then it was gosh, when I hit being a pastor's wife, I'll be completely honest, they even tell you in seminary how hard it is for pastors and their families to actually make deep friendships with people. There's just that trust factor. We have to know that if we tell you something, it's going to be confidential, that it's not going to go across, become the gossip of the day. And so for me, I think that trust factor has even gotten more as I've gotten older, and I found it harder to trust fully everyone. Now it's weird because I feel like I love everyone. There's not a single person in this congregation I don't love and who I would love to talk to and get to know better, but to go to that next level for me is very difficult. And this is me, and I don't know how, I don't think this is typical of introverts, but it's just me in particular. For me, I don't assume anybody wants to be my friend. And so, I was thinking about this the other day. I don't pursue friendships because I don't want anyone to feel like they have to be my friend. So for me, and it was funny because I was thinking about the friendships I have, I've always been pursued. I've never been the pursuer. And I don't know. I just have this like, well, I don't want them to feel like they have to be my
Well,
friend.
and do you think that's because like I've always wondered that, like when we were in Sterling with Stephen's first call as DCE, and we got a new pastor, and they were married, and so or he was married, and so Stephanie, who was also expecting a baby, so we had Judah and Eliza probably 10 days apart from each other, but like them moving in, like it felt almost like the congregation was like, pastor, like this is the pastor, you know, and so then it was like, not to say they weren't giving a lot of attention
Right.
to Stephanie, but like I've always wondered that with
Right.
pastors' wives, like how do you want to be seen by the congregation when the congregation's always focusing on the pastor,
Right.
and what expectations do they have as
Right.
for the pastor's wife, and so that could
it's
really
so-
kind of put some hindrance
Yeah.
on friendships that you try to make.
Yes, definitely. And it's funny because I think that a lot of times, and I don't know, teachers, I would imagine, have the same kind of deal almost where, you know, like, how do you become friends with parents, you know?
Yeah.
Like, is that okay? Or
Right.
does that make it awkward? Whereas, you know, for us, it's just the bigger body of parishioners in general tends to be such a massive amount of people. And it's so much of our personalities. I've seen pastors' wives who make deep friendships within the congregation. It's never a problem at all. I've seen pastors' wives who trusted the wrong people,
Right.
and it's come to hit them in a very negative way. And then I see, you know, like myself, what I end up doing then is never feeling fully friends with many people. But like I said, I love them all. I don't have any problem loving them, caring for them, or doing anything like that. But yeah, it's just an interesting, it makes for an interesting dynamic. And so if you want to be my friend, just tell me so, and I would love to be your friend.
Well, we are your friends.
When you said you had two friends, I was pretty sure you were gonna say Heather and I. And I was like, what can I say? And then you're like, my husband. I was like, well, sorry, Heather.
I'm glad we weren't said, because that would be like, oh, we need to get Jessica more friends.
I was like, here's my time to shine, guys.
It's so funny. It's just, and, you know, and one thing too, work friends.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know, different areas where you have different
Right.
friends. So, like, I love May. I would do almost anything for May, but I necessarily wouldn't call her a close friend.
Right.
Not because I wouldn't want her to be my close friend. It's just, it's a
You work
working-
with her, yeah.
Yeah, a relationship. So,
Right.
anyway, that's my little excursus on where I am in the friendship. Maybe you are similar, maybe you're not, but that's where I am. So,
Well, I'm kind of going into kind of the next trait, because you wanted to talk about trust. Like you want people that you trust to be your friends, because if you're going to tell them something, you want to make sure that it's in confidence, or if you need to go to them again and get advice on it, you know, that you can trust them with that information. And so the trait that I was kind of focusing on is just being dependable, finding support and comfort in someone. There's been different times, and I always go back to my theater friends. When you're putting on a show and you need to know your lines and you need to know your cues and your blocking, and if you're doing choreography for a musical, like, you want the people that you're working with, you want to depend on them. And so I think that's why a lot of my friends have been involved in theater, or, you know, like those types of activities that I've done in high school and in college. And so just being able to make sure that you can count on them when you need them, to find support in them when you are down, when you know, like, you're going through something and you don't know who to talk to. Like, I was talking to Stephen just a little bit before walking over here about, like, who do I find as very dependable? Who do I think as, you know, my support? And obviously my husband, like, but he joked about the fact that, oh, well, you know, your biggest, I guess, the biggest thing that you would always have to do is you'd have to be like 99.9% sharing their DNA. And I'm like, okay, you're talking about Heidi. Like, yes, we grew up together, you know, we were always together. But there's something to say about that. Like,
Right.
we went through the same things. I mean, since we're twins, we had the same classmates throughout K through 12 because we went to a small school. So we were friends with specific people because we grew up with them. So it's not just a DNA thing, but we were going through the same types of, I guess, events in our lives. And so to go through that with someone, it makes sense that you would find support and you would be able to go to them with different problems. If you need advice on something, they've gone through it too. So, you're just able to trust them and find that support in anything that you're doing. And so, like Cassie said earlier, like there's different points in life. You could be friends with someone your entire life. And I definitely have friends that, I grew up with, I'm still friends with, but then, you have those different stages in life where, like you said, work friends. I've worked at 4 different schools and I've gotten to become friends with different people in all those schools, but it's so hard to keep in contact with those other teachers and people you're working with when you don't see them every single day. So I have many different teacher friends and I love them dearly, but it's hard to talk to them every day and say that they're going to, be dependable when, I'm not going to see them every day. But I enjoy those friendships because when I do see those friends, it feels like, you're just falling back into that friendship. It feels like no time has passed. And so when you find those types of people, those friendships, it is important to hold on to those friendships. But then there are those friends where it's like, oh, I'm in this stage of life, and then you could go 5, 10, 15 years and then be like, oh, I haven't even talked to them like in this amount of time. And that's okay too. Like, it's not a bad thing to fall out of a friendship, but knowing that you had that friendship at that one time, you might have needed that friend at that one specific point in your life. So being supportive and, making sure they're dependable for you is what I always like to see in a friend. And that goes along with that trust. I think a lot of the traits that, you find in a friend, they're kind of connected. So.
My friends need to wear cute clothes, have nice hair. No, just kidding. But I think it's so interesting. You kind of said some things, but we always have these friends at different points in life. And I can think of 4 very good friends that I have. That not counting my sister, because she's a great friend. I love my sister. Or my husband, or my brothers. Like,
right.
That's like your forced friends. But
you're still friends.
Like I didn't get to choose them really. Well, I kind of chose Nate.
God chose them.
Yeah, God chose those friends for me. But like, I have certain friends that, and it's funny, it's like a snowball. Like I think about that. Like some friends I've had since I've been little, and there are friends who have left. And my one friend, who I'm still very close with to this day, my friend Katie, the one who says I'm not vulnerable enough. She always says everything has an expiration date. And that's so true. And she goes from the clothes in your closet to the jobs you work to the friends you take. And it doesn't mean that they went bad. But just, I think about the people I met in college. And I was literally friends with everybody at Concordia. Literally friends with everybody. Like I think about it. And
that's why you were homecoming queen,
yes,
right?
Let me get my crown out. But like, I just talked to everybody. It didn't matter. And I would sit with anybody at lunch and I'd talk to them and they're probably like, this girl. Like, how's your day going? How's your life? Like, you want to talk to me about it? And I think about those things, and it's not that I don't love them. And if I saw some of these people, I am sure they would tease me just as much as they did then, or fix my problems just like they did then. But we all live all over the place. It's hard to keep in contact with everybody. And the people who have stayed, it is like a snowball, right? I like picked you up, and I kept you, and I picked you up, and you're stuck with me now, and we just keep rolling. Right. And it's so interesting to see who you pick up in different spots. And when you move, you see that. Some people you do talk to consistently or just every once in a while. Some people just jump right back in later on. You never know.
Right.
But something that I've always loved about some of my friends is my mentor friends. And it's so interesting. It's like, I don't know who told me this, but someone said you always need a friend who's in the same stage of life as you. And that's hard because, especially as you get older, like, You can have people who are the same age as you, but they're in a different stage.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
But then you have the friends also who are like a stage ahead of you. And I just value those friends so much. Like my Natasha Anins, or like, oh, I had this one, she's still my friend, but she's like older than my mom. And she like, and,
okay.
and those are important friends too, because
Right.
they're the friends who are gonna look at you and say, Cassie, you need to get your act together. I'm like, that's what my mom said, but you need to do this. And this is when you have to put your big girl pants on, you have to be. And I think of Ruth and Naomi,
Yeah.
and even though they were in the same thing, they were going through the same issue of life, Naomi said, here's my wisdom. Here's what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you have those people who do come into your life and are able to say, this is what you need to do. And I think about like my first year teaching. I was just so lost and confused. And I had so many mentors, the people who I worked with at my school I did student teach at, and the people who came into my life and said, this is what you need to do. This is what you need help with. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And just in different ways too. And just people, as I've been married and like learning how to like navigate the waters of marriage, sometimes people can say, have you tried this? You're like, no, you're so wise. And it can't be your mom. Like, I love my mom. My mom is a great person. She's one of my best friends. But sometimes your mom can't tell you what to do. You need those mentor friends. So I fear the day I start mentoring others. Because I got to be getting close to that point where I'm like, this is what you should do. Have fun. Because, whew, not ready for that part.
Right.
So if I'm your mentor, I'm sorry. Because we're both walking in it blind. I'm really just trying.
But you hold the power, right? So,
So we're both in trouble.
but yeah, I liked when we were texting back earlier what we were kind of figuring out, like that whole idea of mentorship. And, you know, going into it, you might see them as like, this is the person that is helping me through life, but that friendship is forming because they care so much about you. There's a theater professor, Brian Moore, he's not watching this, I'm sure, that he would become such good friends with the students that he was working at in theater that when like Heidi graduated and then I graduated the year after that, like he was like, I have to stop becoming friends with my students because everyone keeps leaving me, you know? But like I still talk to him. We still visit, like when we stop at Concordia, you know, I'll text him and say, hey, are you on campus or are you going to be here that day? And then we just catch up on life. And that's what I value now. Like he was such a good mentor and director for theater things when I was in college, but now that I'm out of college, like I couldn't imagine not having him in my life. And you know, like there were people that we had in our first congregation in Sterling that like we still are in contact with because they weren't just a part of our life then, like they still care about what's going on with our family and where we're at, and we still care about them so much.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to think. It's crazy to think that you have those times of shifting, but you always have those people you can go back and rely on and you want to catch up with. So, yeah.
And like you said, you just pick up those.
Right.
Like Coach Beisel, right before he came into my classroom, and I like ran and jumped into this man's arms, and all of seventh grade was like. But it is, at that time, I'm not his athlete anymore. He did not have to come over there. He's not trying to recruit me. He's not trying. It was genuinely, I care. And I've gone and I've seen him since we both are in Nebraska. And just other people too. You see those people, and like you said, at that time it's you're gonna help me.
Yeah.
But same time, sometimes those people do help you too.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Which is cool. Go God. Place people in your lives, one step at a time.
Right.
So, I don't know, are we actually going to move on to wow, we are booking it today.
You know, it's okay. We can have a short one, just like the guys.
That's right. All right, so we're going to turn then and do some looking at Jesus. So I'm going to read John 15, verses 12 through 17. It says, "This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing. But I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should abide. So that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he may give it to you. These things I command you so that you will love one another. And so I have always found this verse just so powerful, just that he calls us friends. For me, who like friend is a big word in my life, like that's huge. Giving you that friend label is like huge in my life. So for me, like, whoa,
You're blown away.
he's choosing me and he's calling me friend. Like, how huge is that? But then what I love about it is, it's interesting because he's talking about friends, but it's also laced in with this commandments. But what is the commandment he's telling us is to love one another like he has loved us. And like when we're talking about trust, dependability, that mentorship, what better example of a friend do we have than the one who ultimately laid down his life for us? And I don't know about you, like, I think I would be willing to lay down my life for my friends. I would hope I would if I came to that, but I would not want to lay down my life for friends who have been awful, vile to me, friends who have broken my trust, friends who have shown that they're not dependable, who aren't worthy of being mentors. Like, those would be hard ones to lay down their life, and yet we look at Christ, and oh my gosh.
Well, there's just so much selflessness. I mean, to think when Jesus died on the cross to save us from our sins, like, he did no wrong. Like, he wasn't the one to be punished. We were. But yet he was more than willing to step in and say, I'm going to do this. Like, God's commanded me to do this. My Father's having me do this for all my other friends, all the other people in the world. And so, if you're looking at your own friendships in your life, like, no one is more selfless than Jesus and God. But to have that example, like, if you're going to call somebody up and say, hey, I really need to talk to you right now. I have certain friends that live far away where, if they call, I try to pick up the phone. if they call and I see, I can't get to them right now, I try to call them back. But I struggle with, like, being that accountable, even when it is just a phone call. But I know that we're still great friends. It's just knowing that you're not going to be as selfless as what Jesus is, and to have that thought of he's always going to be there. When you turn to him in prayer, when you ask for comfort, when you ask for some type of signs of love, but just knowing that he is number one. Like, he's your number one supporter. He's your number one comforter, savior, obviously. That will always be there.
And I think it goes back to, you said, some friends end. And our expiration dates. And I always tell everybody, it's important you find the expiration date before it actually hits, or it's bad.
Right.
But it's the one thing that doesn't have an expiration date.
Oh, yeah.
And as you were reading that, I was thinking about when I lived in Seymour, when I first moved there, I had a friend in Arizona. We are still very good friends to this day. But we were just two Midwest girls wandering in a desert on a horse without a name. That's what we called ourselves. We had a great time. And I got to Seymour, and I made some great friends there. But I was super young and single, and they were all married. And I was like, so, like, you're going to hang out with your husband? You don't want to go do things with me? I can't just call you randomly. Like, we're not going to go split appetizers. I'm really not feeling this. And I felt so alone. And all my friends lived in other places, and I was like, God sent me to the middle of nowhere. I didn't even know Battle Creek existed. But, like, just to think about that friend and I knew I wasn't alone, and that's sometimes hard to understand, but to have that comfort, even when you feel like there's not a friend in the world you can trust, you do have that ultimate friend.
I think that's the hugest part that gets us through all stages of life, whether you're young or old. The fact that we have our friend who is sticking closer to us than a brother, and that's Jesus. And one of my favorite hymns is "What a Friend We Have in Jesus." Where I told my husband he's got to do that at my funeral if he's still around, or whoever goes first. But just that's always been wonderful. And I think about one of the things I love in my deaconess training was going to people who were close to death. When I would visit them, and them talking about Jesus being there with them and how comforting that was for them when they at times were some of the loneliest people because many of their friends had passed on
It's gonna be a
or
bad day.
definitely were not able to,
Be there.
they just weren't able to get together anymore because of their health. And I just think, wow, that they had that faith, they had Christ to lean on and support them in that time. So, and I think sometimes I know with my kids, I tell them that, I'm like, if they're having friend troubles, well, you have a friend who is with you all the time, who will never leave you nor forsake you. And I hope that comes from in that time when you have that loneliness, it is hard, like you said, it is hard
So you
sometimes.
can't go hang out with him at a restaurant.
I'm sorry, the seat is for Jesus. He's sitting here.
And they'd be like, that chick, she shows up every week with her friend Jesus.
You know what? No judgments.
I had a friend who she wore a heart with Jesus in the heart, and that was her Valentine. So she did it. Yeah.
You don't need a guy.
No, she was super sweet, great friend, and but kind of that mentality of, hey, I've got someone who's with me all the time,
Right.
so why do I need to be worrying about all this other stuff? So, yeah. Anything else we're gonna say about friendships?
Other than look at us, we got it done in the right amount of time.
The boys will not believe us when we come home.
They will not.
It won't be done till 8 o'clock. Showed you who's boss.
But really, yeah, like friendship, it as much as we like to say, like we want to have a lot of friends because that kind of shows like people like us,
Yeah, because we didn't really talk about social media and its impact on
Oh.
friends.
Right.
Just
How many
lots of
friends do you have? No, just kidding.
Right. I don't even know.
I started deleting people if I didn't know what who they were on their birthday.
I should go through my Facebook and be like,
If it says it's so-and-so's birthday and I have to think, who is that?
Yeah,
That's
then
when I
there's an
decided.
issue.
That's probably true.
Right.
But then just, count the likes and how that makes us, fulfills that kind of,
Next week, social media.
Yeah, that's a good one. Maybe we should go.
Yeah,
I
we
like
should.
that.
That could
I
be
like
deep.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Follow me on Instagram. No, just kidding. No, I don't do anything cool anymore. 3 years ago, it was hopping. Now, just pictures of my dog.
See, it changes.
Seasons of life. Used to be me hiking mountains, now it's me hanging out with my dog.
Because Nebraska has no
I
mountains.
know. That's where we're gonna go.
Oh.
So tune in next week. I bet that's on
Social media.
topic. We'll
Not
get
sure what it's going to be about, but it's going to be big.
We'll narrow it down. It'll be fine. Next week will be the 2-hour episode.
Here's all the things I've learned about social media.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed the nice weather that we're having, and we'll see you next week.